guys, and welcome to today's video. Before we get to our project, I wanted to just give my thoughts on using Distress Oxide sprays in your Bible. This is my first time using them. I bought these colors and then a few others just to kind of test them out. My next thing to test them out on is my gel press plate, so that'll be super fun, so watch for that video soon. And so I wanted to kind of test them out. We're going to be testing them out actually today in an illustrated Bible that has been treated with clear gesso. And a couple of things I kind of figured out, decided along the way. It is, it's not my favorite thing to use, and here's why. Even when I did a layer of clear gesso, I still had a lot of breakthrough. There'll be a picture here in just a second of that. So if you don't necessarily mind bleed through, then you might be fine. It just was more than I was really expecting, especially since I had done the clear gesso. I also have a problem with the way the sprayers are done, because when they spray in a circle. So imagine like this is your spray and there's like a white spot almost in the middle, so you kind of have to always be on the move with it, and if you don't remember that, you end up with like a weird thing and then you have to add more. I also felt like because they are Distress Oxides, they're supposed to be water reactive. I do feel like they're not quite as water reactive as the Distress inks. That could be, again, because I am using lighter colors, it could be that. I haven't tested it with a couple of the other colors yet, but I feel like I didn't get as much drastic of that water reactiveness. Now, they blended beautifully. They had that nice kind of finish that Distress Oxides usually have. But those are kind of the three things that made me maybe not love them. I'm still gonna play with them because obviously I bought them and I don't want to be wasteful. But for me personally, I'm just gonna figure out a different way to use them, because directly in my Bible just didn't necessarily work as well for me as I hoped. So hopefully I can come up with some techniques to make it a little bit easier and a little more sustainable to use these in your Bible journaling. So with that being said, let's get to today's project.
Hey there guys, and welcome to the project. So we're going to start by applying matte gel medium over our entire page. You could also do this with clear gesso, but basically we're just strengthening the page and just allowing our mediums to work better on it. There are a lot of layers in this project, so you will see my heat gun a lot in this one. And just like we talked about in the beginning of this video, we're going to be playing with Distress Oxides. I did go ahead and kind of cover up the verse that I am working on. So we are using the idea of go into all the world and preach the gospel from John. And so I'm kind of setting up my colors, and like we discussed in the beginning, you can see that, particularly on that blue, you can see there's that halo, and on the green there's that halo. So I think definitely if you're going to be using these, do in sweeping motions, and I think it'll avoid that kind of halo syndrome that I had going on there a little bit. So I'm just spraying them here and there, allowing them to just naturally mix since they're still wet. I'm loving these colors. You can see over on the right, that's the little map we're going to be using for today's project, and I was kind of trying to emulate those colors, but I kind of felt like these were a little more pastel than I expected them to be. I am going in and kind of doing a little flick with the tubing, again, while it's still wet, so that the colors will kind of naturally fade into each other. Gonna be honest, not super happy because it feels very like cotton candy rainbow cloud kind of situation right now, and so I'm kind of trying to decide what I want to do to change that. So again, there's my heat gun and just getting that dry so I can kind of think through what I'd like to do next. And what I think I want to do is I want to try to tone the color down. I'm doing just flicking with some water, and like I said in the beginning, I feel like you don't get as much reactivity as you do with the inks, maybe because it's wet on it's more wet in the beginning, or I don't know, maybe it's just the colors I used. I don't know. Let me know down in the comments if you've used Distress Oxides, the sprays, and what you've gotten. So I'm using my matte gel medium and a little bit of some golden brown I had left over from another project. And I'm kind of trying to come up with a way to tone the colors down just a little bit so that they are more, I guess, more muted and more rustic than this kind of cotton candy 5-year-old's birthday party situation I have going on right now. And so that's kind of what I'm going to try to do here is I've just mixed a little bit of acrylic paint and a little bit of that matte gel medium, and I'm just kind of giving it a swipe over. I wish I would have done a little less acrylic paint so that it was a little more translucent. So as I'm painting it, I'm realizing I'm obscuring a little more than I really wanted to. I mean, the goal was to, oh, I'm peeling off my tape before I accidentally glue it down like I was just about to do. So in order to let that come back up and give a lot of texture, I'm taking a paper towel, and while it's all still wet, dabbing it, and you can see those colors underneath are starting to pop back through, but they're not as vibrant. So I'm still getting that effect of the pinks and the blues and the greens, but it's not as bold and cotton candy and playful as it kind of was before. And of course, the heat gun is out again because there's a lot of layers going on in this project. I am loving how kind of more distressed it is looking. You can see the back there, like we discussed, there was definitely a lot of breakthrough, even though we had prepped our page. I don't know, I'm a little iffy about that using Distress Oxides at the moment. I'll figure out a way to use it. So this piece of paper is actually a scrapbook page paper that I found at Hobby Lobby for like, I don't know, 30 cents. And what I've done is I've just kind of the term is called fussy cut, but basically I've just cut out the continental shapes in ways that I think would work really good. I'm kind of a cheater, so I tend to, if I need a straight edge, I do my best to cut like the edge of the paper in a way to where I don't have to be responsible for keeping the paper edge straight. Maybe that's just me, or maybe that's a tip that just rocks somebody's world. I don't know. So I'm just kind of thinking as I go. I had cut that big chunk out, that big kind of landmass, but now I'm just kind of, as I feel like I need to fill in areas, I'm just cutting pieces here and there and using that matte gel medium and a paintbrush to glue it down, and then of course adding a layer on top as well to seal it down. And you can see this paper is kind of an old world map. So it's got like some really great muted colors that I kind of loved because I love like vintage globes and that kind of thing. The only thing, of course, about this project that takes a long time is the layering and drying stuff, and then of course the fussy cutting of all of these little continents and stuff that can get a little tedious. But if you're someone that likes to cut stuff out, this is a super fun project. And if you want to use an idea like this, using scrapbooking paper in your Bible journaling makes for really inexpensive images and really expensive accessories. Like I said, this piece of paper was 30 cents. I think they're regularly like 59 cents, but of course it was like a half price day or something. And so it was like 30 cents. So I'm just picking and choosing kind of where I think the land masses kind of need to go. I'm not trying to keep it legit. I'm not trying to keep it globally anatomically correct or anything like that. I'm just really just kind of having fun and just doing placements here and there. Oh, yeah, and I think I told you the wrong um, thing that we were in. My bad. We are actually in Mark chapter 15, verse 16, I think. I'll have to double check that real quick while we're cutting out more and more and more continents. All right, so I've kind of gotten my continents down where I'm, yes, mark 1615. I apologize, my brain just completely went out there. So we're using the verse, go into all the world and preach the gospel as our main one. Why my brain didn't remember that, I don't know. And so I've gone old school. I've grabbed out my Distress ink walnut stain, and I want to start to give this project that very much that vintage map feel. So I'm just using a or a cosmetic wedge to kind of tone down my edges, and then going around the edge of the continents again to give them that distressed look, and make the edges a little less sharp so that they feel like they're older and feel like they're a little more weathered. I haven't done this kind of like distressed, muted kind of project. If you guys are on my channel at all, you know I'm usually like the mo color, the mo better. And so this was really a fun kind of um, trip back to my days when I was on like the Graphic 45 design team, and that is their style, this kind of vintage thing. So now I'm taking some stamps from Tim Holtz that are kind of just graphic, and using an archival ink pad in sepia to kind of again begin to grunge it up, make it look a little more old. Those little circles kind of remind me of almost like coffee cup stains or something of that nature. And I'm not being super precise with it. I'm just kind of adding them here and there, just like I said, to give them some texture. I pulled out this stencil by Rebecca Meyer from the Crafters Workshop because it kind of had that distressed old school writing kind of thing. I tried it with the distress ink. It wasn't my favorite. I tried it with the archival ink. It showed up a little bit better. I think maybe just the design wasn't as prominent as I thought it would be, but it's there. It kind of added just a little bit more texture. And now I'm taking a little bit of that matte gel medium and acrylic with my finger over the part in the middle, because I felt like it was a little too bold white when everything else was starting to kind of be more muted and kind of distressed down. So here's one of those times where I was just playing and trying to figure out what I wanted things to be. I thought that this gold Sharpie would be enough pop around the edge um, of my continents, but it ended up being too close in color to the kind of goldish brown I used in the background. So I went ahead and finished it because you don't want to leave it half finished. But I wasn't in love with it. I thought it would have a little bit more oomph and a little more, maybe a little more texture, but it didn't have as much effect as I would like. So I kind of had to marinate on that and be like, didn't like that. And y'all know I'm everything but on it, and I'm always honest with you guys. And like if I goof up something, I leave it in there because, this is life. This is Bible journaling. It's not always going to be perfect. So I decided to go ahead and pull out my handy dandy Faber-Castell Pitt artist pens, and use those at first, and then I kind of changed my mind again. So this is my favorite part. I will leave a link to the website I used down below. So I was trying to figure out, do I want to do words? Do I want to do journaling? What do I want to do? And I decided to find a website that shows you how to say go in a bunch of different languages. So that's what I'm doing here. It took me like 12 minutes, and I tried to as respectfully as I could. Some of them were really difficult to write, but I hope I'm not offending anybody if I wrote something incorrectly. But I just put, I don't even know how many different ways to say go on this page, because I just love this idea that we're not only going into the world, but we're there to save it, and we have to get to know it. Yes, the Bible does say don't be of the world, but you still have to understand the world in order to communicate with it. And so I love this idea of, just think about it, if missionaries, they learn the language. So in order for us to reach people, we have to know how to talk to them. We have to know how to reach them in a way that they understand. And so that's kind of what my thought process was behind this idea of putting the word go in all of these different languages. And like I said, I will put that link that I used down below because it was just a really cool resource that I just did a little bit of Googling for. And I just love the idea of kind of the go in so many different languages. I'm using a Sharpie Roller Pen here. It's a great finishing pen. And since I didn't love that gold, I'm just going with that same pen around the edge just a little bit, just to kind of give a little more pop to my little continents that I created there. Again, they are not globally anatomically correct. It's an imaginary map. And then I wanted to add some of those elements that like a vintage map would. So vintage maps would have kind of these little wave motifs and that kind of thing. And then every map, of course, has to have a compass. So I was trying to figure out the best way to make a compass without trusting in my circle skills. So I did have that little circle from my stamp set, so I just used it. Just made it a little bit darker than some of the other ones, and then used my brown pit artist pen. And I like to kind of tap it to mute it down a little bit because we're trying to keep things rustic, we're trying to keep things vintagey. And then just using my black Sharpie to add those details in. And you're going to see I'm going to forget which way is north, south, east, and west because I am not a cardinal directions person. I am yep, see me mess up right there? I am not a cardinal directions person. I am a landmark driver. Tell me to turn left at the McDonald's. Don't tell me to turn east or west. I'll never get there and I'll die of hunger. So yeah, so I messed that up, but that's okay. It goes with the distressed kind of feel of it. And so I'm just adding a few more little waves to finish this up. I am loving the way this turned out, and I hope you guys did too. Make sure to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time on the Creative Life Studios.